Hey guys, welcome to this new episode. We have some breaking news, devastating news for Pete Hegseth. Pete Hegseth is done. Impeachment is coming soon. There's so many scandals right now around his figure since the beginning of this administration. So let me share right away a quick video with you because there's a new report from a watchdog out today, an inspector general at the Pentagon that went back through, I think it was around March when, remember the signal scandal that Pete Hegseth shared battle plans? This comes on top of the new scandal about the killing of survivors in the Caribbean. So this has been a total disaster. Republicans are joining Democrats right now, requesting a deep investigation. They want to dive right in. They are not on board at all with the narrative from Donald Trump, the White House, and even the Pentagon saying that all of this has been blown out of proportion. They believe that according to reporting right now available, even though they know and they say and they admit that, we need the facts. But so far, if everything happens to be accurate in terms of what happened back in the Caribbean around September 2nd when they decided to kill survivors based on Pete Hegseth's orders, he is in deep shit. And apparently impeachment is finally coming, accountability, and who knows, maybe prison. Listen to this report right now by CNN. Let's listen to what's going on with the new report that just came out today.
Has obtained exclusive details on the Pentagon's watchdog review of Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and other top national security officials' use of the app Signal to discuss attack plans leaked in March. I want to get straight to Zach Cohen, who has the story. Zach, what are we learning?
Yeah, Dana, this report is still classified. It has not been publicly released yet, but sources telling me and our colleague Jake Tapper that the Inspector General for the Pentagon did conclude that Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense, risked compromising sensitive military information which could have endangered American troops and risked mission objectives when he used Signal to share that information about an ongoing military operation targeting the Houthi rebels in Yemen. That was back in March. You may remember that these messages were revealed after Atlantic reporter Jeffrey Goldberg was accidentally added to this Signal group chat. And some of these messages are so specific, one of them even saying from Hegseth, quote, "This is the exact time the bombs will drop." So the Inspector General has been investigating Hegseth's use of Signal for several months now, since April. And we're now finding that he came to the same conclusion that many of the critics, current and former U.S. officials did at the time, that Hegseth should not have been using Signal to communicate this sensitive information to other Trump officials, and that he could, the potential consequences of that could have been dire. The IG also concluded, too, that there was no documentation, as far as they could find, that Hegseth made a choice to declassify this information before sending it to the Signal group chat. Now, that's important because we know that the information itself was from a document that was marked classified at the time, and the Inspector General was looking at, among other things, whether or not Hegseth did appropriately declassify it before disseminating it. And one other interesting note, too, Dana, is that Hegseth apparently did not sit for an interview with the Inspector General, resisted doing so, instead provided his responses to their questions in writing. So this is the most fulsome picture that we're getting of this report that's coming from an independent watchdog, one that has been really meticulous in reviewing the facts, acquiring documentation related to Hegseth's use of Signal, and is now offering its assessment that really aligns with what we've been talking about for months now.
Wow, guys, this is absolutely devastating for Pete Hegseth right now. Let me tell you something. Look at one of the things that they just brought up on this report, that Pete Hegseth declined. He resisted sitting down for an interview with the Inspector General. Pete Hegseth happens to be one of these great Christian guys, right? He's a man of faith, a man of the Bible, a man of, Jesus and all, The Bible tells you that if you have nothing to hide, if you have done nothing wrong, you will love the light. You will come to the light so that everybody can see. You can manifest to everyone that your acts are good. To the contrary, when you do when you do the opposite, when you hide your actions, when you don't want to come to the light, normally, more often than not, at least according to the Bible that Pete Hegseth, swears to live by, it means you have something to hide. So that's a very telling detail right there. The fact that he didn't want to sit with the inspector general, why not? Why only provide written answers? Oh, of course, because, I can give you a written statement that, came from my lawyers, from the people that are helping me to avoid accountability, to prevent self-incriminating. That's very, very concerning, one thing. The second thing that they point out is that the inspector general found that Pete Hegseth never declassified. This was actually classified information that he shared on an app, third-party app, completely unsafe, completely unsecured, unapproved, unvetted, secretly, endangering the lives of U.S. troops. Totally irresponsible, totally unacceptable. And one thing I have to say, when you go to that aspect of the no interview, hiding himself, being afraid of confronting, facing reality. You are the Secretary of War. You are the Defense Secretary. You're the top, person in the Pentagon right now. You should show some leadership. Hey, this happened. I take responsibility for it. It was good. It was bad. I'm taking responsibility no matter what. I'm not going to blame my people, which is what they're doing right now. They are blaming one of the generals that was, in charge of the Caribbean strikes. Pete Hegseth is saying, "Oh, I gave him all the, authority. I went on to my next meeting. I just watched it live," because, initially they were saying he knew nothing. Now they are admitting that he was live because he went on Fox News and said that he watched it live, the whole killing, of these 11 people, the bombing of the boat. But then he says that there was a lot of smoke and fog and whatever, and, he just left. So he didn't know what was the result of it. Do you think Pete Hegseth, for real, supervising this whole mission, knowing they were going to kill 11 people, that he would just wait for the bombs to drop and not wait to actually see if the mission was successful or not? Do you think he was like, yeah, you guys keep an eye on that. I'm moving on to the next meeting instead of just waiting, when he had just given the order to kill everyone on that boat? That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Who knows? We have to wait for the facts to come out. But I was going to tell you, think of this. They're blaming now the general. Pete Hegseth doesn't want to sit down with the inspector general. And I have 2 videos for you, so please stick around, because this show is going to be great for you. You're going to get a video. We're going to play a video from Glenn Kirshner and Dan Maurer, who happens to be a constitutional law professor who was a JAG military, JAG legal resource, career military lawyer. So if you want to listen to someone talking about this whole thing, this is the guy you have to listen to, Glenn Kirshner and Dan Moore, Professor Dan Moore. And we're also going to play a video from Tammy Duckworth precisely addressing Pete Hegseth's total, absolute, inefficiency, lack of experience and competency. But anyway, I wanted to point out this. Look how Donald Trump never wanted to sit down under oath in any of his trials. He was always crying and, just throwing a tantrum outside of the court, saying, "Oh, they're just not allowing me to talk. They're banning me. They're using, this how they call it, la ley de mordaza. I forgot the word in English right now. The judge gag order. They're using the gag order to silence me. They're literally infringing my First Amendment right, violating my First Amendment right. They don't allow me to speak." That's what Donald Trump said. They don't allow me to speak outside of the court, because he was obviously doing a lot of things that were not good. He was like doxing people. He was accusing family members of the judge or prosecutors, stuff like that. But still, or even trying to compromise the case in many ways. But the thing is that he had a chance to sit under oath in many of the trials, and he never wanted to do so. He didn't want to talk to the jury in the E. Jean Carroll, sexual abuse and defamation cases, and he didn't want to sit down under oath with Letitia James and he at some point he was interviewed, but he pled the fifth like 400 times in one of these trials. So look at how these people are absolutely alpha males, always they're the bravest. But when it comes to facing accountability or even facing scrutiny, they don't want it. They just can't handle it. Donald Trump is snapping daily to reporters, especially women. He recently called a woman piggy. He called another one stupid. It's like been 3 in a row right now. He's been snapping just because they're asking hard questions that he doesn't like. The guy that's always, putting out all sorts of accusations and attacks and personal attacks and humiliating people and bullying people online, he just can't take a joke. He wanted Jimmy Kimmel to be fired. He wants reporters to be fired. He wants whole media companies, networks to lose their licenses because he just can't handle the truth. That reminded me of A Few Good Men. You can't handle the truth, right? So look at the difference. And then Donald Trump, for his impeachment trials, he declined testifying before Congress. He didn't want to do it. He's just like, you guys do you. I'm not sitting in front of Congress to answer questions under oath. Why? Because Donald Trump's, he's always lying left and right. That's what we're seeing right now with Pete Hegseth. He's doing the same thing. He wants to go online and post a bunch of, very long messages about what's going on and how the fake media is blowing things out of proportion, how they're lying, how it's the same fake news pushing a political agenda, the far left, radicals, communists, supposedly lying, right? But look at the difference. When it comes to Democrats, Hillary Clinton was like, I don't know, greatly, investigated. She was thoroughly investigated. And she sat down for at least 11 hours before Congress. And she never, not a single time, pled the fifth, not a single time avoided answering questions. Any single question. Go and find it. That's still online. That hearing is still online on Benghazi, and they even brought up some other topics. She has always sat down and faced every single opposition, congressperson trying to question her about anything and everything they wanted to question her. So Hillary Clinton showed that she had more balls than Donald Trump to do that. And the same goes now for Pete Hegseth. He's so brave, so alpha male. He has nothing to hide. He did everything legally. Why not sit down for the interview with the Inspector General? Biden sat down when he was being investigated now for the classified documents that Biden voluntarily alerted NARA and the FBI and the DOJ. Remember, the difference between Biden and Mike Pence's case and Donald Trump's case is that Mike Pence and Joe Biden voluntarily, when they found the documents, they called the DOJ, they called the FBI, and they fully cooperated, both of them. So then people are, Joe Biden had classified documents. Yes. And he called these people, he called the agencies, he invited them to their houses. They didn't have to go getting a search warrant from a judge because he was lying for over a year and sending a certified letter of his lawyer stating that everything had been already given back, that there was not a single document left at his property as Donald Trump did. Donald Trump made, I think it was Christina Bobb, one of his personal lawyers, inexperienced lawyers. She signed a document, a letter that they sent to the DOJ saying we just handed over everything, because they handed around 11 boxes initially, 11, 12, maybe 13 boxes. That was less than, I don't know, maybe 2% of all the documents that they had there, if not 1%, because it was thousands. I believe that he had more than 10,000 classified documents. The vast majority of them highly classified, including war plans, battle plans, and a bunch of, very, very sensitive stuff. Biden has some stuff, but he called and he said, hey, we just found this, please. And not only that, they appointed a Republican prosecutor. Merrick Garland appointed a very conservative career Republican prosecutor to investigate Biden. And Biden sat down with that guy. And the guy says, who was it? Robert Hur, I think it was the name. He said on his report, Biden fully, candidly, openly sat down and he answered all our questions. Can you say the same about Donald Trump cooperating with the FBI or the DOJ, whatever? So you can see the difference. Biden, Hillary Clinton, hey, you have a hearing? Yeah, count me in. You have a special counsel? Yeah, count me in. I'm fully cooperating. You can't say the same about Donald Trump. You can't say the same about Pete Hegseth at all. Unfortunately, that's not the case. These people are completely corrupt, and that's why they have something to hide. That's why they're always going on social media, going on TV, going on all the networks, trying to promote a narrative, but they don't want to put those same things in writing under oath. I precisely was sharing this morning, I shared a live episode, go in and check my previous episode about Judge Boasberg. The Abrego Garcia, just remember the guy that was asking the planes to be turned around if they were already in the air. He just ordered DHS, Kristi Noem, to put everyone on the record. He's like, I need your people. Remember, a couple of months ago, he opened a contempt of court, a criminal contempt investigation into the Trump administration, into DHS, into Kristi Noem and her staff, and the DOJ, lawyers that were handling this whole thing. And now he told them, you know what? This is moving forward. So I need you, Kristi Noem, to put all your people, in this command chain, from top to bottom, everybody that was involved in this whole case of Abrego Garcia and the planes and what he was investigating. He told them, I want sworn declarations. And they have until the 5th. Today is the 3rd. They have until the 5th, which is what, Friday? Today's Wednesday. Probably until Friday. If I'm not mistaken, I'm not looking at the calendar. So anyway, they have only 2 days left to come up with the sworn declarations, which is going to be a major problem because you know what happens when you lie? When you lie, lies begin like a really small snowball, and all of a sudden they start rolling, and eventually they turn into this massive avalanche. The problem is that you just can't keep up with the lies, and it's easy when you're just verbally saying things here and there, but even in court, they were contradicting themselves. They messed up, they fumbled, they dropped the ball so badly, even in court. So now the judge is like, no more games. No more games, baby. I need you to put all your people on the record, sworn declarations from everybody, top to bottom. So now this is getting really interesting. And this is what they have to do with, these people. But remember, going back to the news about Pete Hegseth said, you remember, when this whole thing happened about Signal, because remember, the Inspector General just published a report. It's literally going viral right now as we speak today. An Inspector General at the Pentagon went into the whole Signal scandal. And Pete Hegseth had said many times during that time around March, nothing is wrong. We did nothing wrong. There was nothing illegal. There was no classified information revealed. There were no battle plans revealed. This was the fake news. These are 100% political attacks because they're mad that the Trump, President Trump's agenda is being, been performed and implemented, and we're making America great again, and a bunch of bullshit. A lot of, great word salad, saying absolutely nothing. He denied battle plans. He said there were no war battle plans. And when they read the chat, you remember the chat. The chat has specifics. We just heard, on this CNN clip. The chat had specific timings for when the bombs were going to be dropped, in what area, what kind of planes were going to be used. This guy was so naive. He sent this information to his wife, to his brother, to his lawyer, and they put it on that chat where the guy who created the chat, I forgot who out of like the 7 or 9 or 10 people that were included, who of them did it. I think I forgot. I'm not gonna guess. Anyway, they included that reporter. Remember, they included a reporter from what? The Wall Street Journal, probably it was. They included a reporter that had nothing to do with the Trump cabinet, nothing to do with the war plans or the Pentagon or anything. This guy had absolutely no clearance, no business in being in these conversations. But this is what happens when you have incompetent, inexperienced, ignorant, willfully ignorant people running the government, running the Pentagon, running war and battle plans. God's sake, you're including a fucking reporter in a group chat on an app that is completely unapproved, unsafe, that has been hacked many times. Russians have hacked it and many others. And you are so fucking dumb that you decide to go and put battle plans there. And not only that, then open a second chat on that same app and send the information to your wife, to your personal lawyer, and to your brother, just to brag. Hey, you guys don't have any clearance, but I trust you guys, right? Who cares about clearance? Who cares? If it's his wife. Republicans were even covering up for him. Yeah, it's Pete Hegseth's wife. He was taking his wife. There was reporting he was taking his wife to classified meetings. And I understand your wife is your wife, but if your wife doesn't have clearance for classified information, she is not entitled to get the information. You never know. What if your wife is being unfaithful? What if your wife is 2 months away from divorcing you. You never know. Considering how much of an asshole Pete Hegseth is, that may be the case. This guy is on his third marriage right now. So, on average, how long has he been married? 2 years, 3 years on average. That means that he's sharing classified information with an unauthorized person who may be just a year away from divorcing him and moving on to the next guy, right? So it's absolutely irresponsible. It's putting the troops' lives, our American lives, American soldier lives at risk for no reason. And that's the reason why Tammy Duckworth, Congresswoman Tammy Duckworth, an ex-veteran from, many wars, and also she was a pilot. Her chopper, her helicopter was taken down by enemy fire, and she lost her legs. And this lady has continued grinding and working on behalf of veterans and military people and our security, national security. Great person. I have a great deal of respect for Tammy Duckworth. And she mopped the floor with Pete Hegseth during his confirmation hearing. I'm not sure if you guys came across this or not, if you saw it or not. Listen to this. Let me play it for you. This was so humiliating and devastating. Check it out.
Make it clear. You can't seem to grasp that there is no U.S. military as we know it without the incredible women that we serve. Women who've earned their place in their units. You have not earned your place as Secretary of Defense. You say you care about keeping our armed forces strong and that you like that our armed forces are meritocracy, then let's not lower the standards for you. You, sir, are a no-go at this station. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And also, Secretary Mattis had to have this waiver as well. Mr. Hegseth, this hearing is about whether you are qualified to be Secretary of Defense, and one of the qualifications, to answer my colleague's question, is to actually win the votes of every member of this committee and to be confirmed by the United States Senate. And you need to convince us that you're worthy of that vote, because the people of the state of Illinois voted for me to be their senator so that I could cast that vote when it comes to picking who is going to be the next Secretary of Defense. This hearing now seems to be a hearing about whether or not women are qualified to serve in combat, and not about whether or not you are qualified to be Secretary of Defense. And let me just say that the American people need a SecDef who's ready to lead on day one. You are not that person. Our adversaries watch closely during times of transition, and any sense that the Department of Defense that keeps us safe is being steered by someone who's wholly unprepared for the job puts America at risk, and I am not willing to do that. With that in mind, Mr. Hegseth, I want you to try to explain to the American people, this committee, who have to vote for you, and to our troops who are deployed around the world, why you are qualified to lead the Department of Defense. We already know that you've only led the largest, a 200-person organization. We already know that you so badly mangled a budget that after you left, they had to bring in a forensic accountant to figure out what went wrong, and that the largest budget you ever managed was about $18 billion. You know, that is about 51,560 times lower than the Department of Defense budget of $825 billion. $16 million is 51,568 times smaller than the defense budget. Please describe to me, Mr. Hegseth, you talk about DOD passing an audit. Please describe to me a time or an organization when that you led underwent an audit, because you say you're going to hire smarter people than you to run this audit. I'm not asking you to be an accountant. I want you to be able to tell me what kind of guidance will be given to those employees, what will happen whether or not you pass that audit. Have you led an audit of any organization, yes or no? I don't want a long answer, yes or no. Have you led an audit of any organization of which you were in charge?
Senator, in both of the organizations I ran, we were always completely fiscally responsible.
Yes or no, did you lead an audit?
And the way
yes or no, did you lead an audit?
Stated,
yes or no? What are you afraid of? You can't answer this question. Yes or no, did you lead an audit? Do you not know this answer?
Senator, every
yes or
part
no?
of my leadership
yes
of these organizations
yes
has
or
been
no,
misrepresented.
I will take that as a no. What were the findings? So there were no findings because you've never led an audit. What guidance did you give the auditors? None, because you've never led an audit. Nobody expects you to be an accountant, Mr. Hegseth. What we expect is for you to understand the complexity of this Pentagon budget process that is absolutely necessary to outfit our warfighters. Look, the Secretary of Defense is required to make quick decisions every single day. that, well, with high-level information that's being provided for them, a Secretary of Defense has to have breadth and depth of knowledge. Right now, I am concerned that you have neither. Mr. Hegseth, what is the highest level of international negotiations that you have engaged in, that you have led in? Because the Secretary of Defense does lead international security negotiations. There are three main ones that the Secretary of Defense leads and signs. Can you name at least one of them?
Could you repeat the question, Senator?
Sure. What is the highest level of international security agreement that you have led? And can you name some that the Secretary of Defense would lead? There's three main ones. Do you know?
I have not been involved in international security arrangements because I have not been in government other than serving in the military. So my job has been to
no. The
lead
answer is no.
men and
Can you
women
name
in
one of the
combat.
three main ones that the
You're
Secretary
talking
of
about
Defense
defense
signs?
arrangements. I mean, NATO might be one that you're referring to.
Status of Forces Agreement would be one of them.
Status of Forces Agreement. I've been a part of teaching about Status of Forces Agreements.
But you don't
inside
remember to
Afghanistan.
mention it? You're not qualified, Mr. Hegseth. You're not qualified. You talk about repairing our defense industrial complex. You're not qualified to that. You could do acquisition and cross-servicing agreements, which essentially are security agreements. You can't even mention that. You've done none of those. You talked about the Indo-Pacific a little bit, and I'm glad that you mentioned it. Can you name the importance of at least one of the nations in the ASEAN, and what type of agreement we have with at least one of those nations? And how many nations are in ASEAN, by the way?
I couldn't tell you the exact amount of nations in that, but I know we have allies in South Korea and Japan and in AUKUS with Australia, and trying to work on submarines with them.
Mr. Hegseth, none of those countries are in
allies
ASEAN.
Across.
None of those three countries that you've mentioned are in ASEAN. I suggest you do a little homework before you prepare for these types of negotiations. Listen, Mr. Hegseth, we ask our troops to go into harm's way all the time. We ask them to go into harm's way. And this behind me is a copy of the Soldier's Creed, a copy that usually hangs over my desk here in the Senate, and you should be familiar with it. It's the same copy that hung over my desk at Walter Reed every single day that I woke up and fought my way back because I wanted to go back and serve next to my buddies who'd saved my life. This same copy, these words are repeated over and over and over again. And let me read out two things to you, two sentences. I will always place the mission first, and I am disciplined, physically and mentally tough, trained and proficient in my warrior task. Mr. Hegseth, our troops follow these words every single day, and they man up and they pack their rucksacks and they go to war. And they deserve a leader who can lead them, not a leader who wants to lower the standards for himself or raising the standards for other people. And by the way, our troops already meet the standards. We ask troops to man that ship, fight that fire, fly that helicopter until their very last breath. And they do that every single day. They cannot be led by someone who's not competent to do the job. How can we ask these warriors to train and perform the absolute highest standards when you are asking us to lower the standards to make you the Secretary of Defense simply because you are buddies with our president-elect? And by the way, he has filed for bankruptcy 6 times. I'm not quite sure he's the kind of CEO you want to refer to as a successful businessman. Let me make it clear. You can't seem to grasp that there is no U.S. military as we know it without the incredible women that we serve. Women who've earned their place in their units. You have not earned your place as Secretary of Defense. You say you care about keeping our armed forces strong and that you like that our armed forces are meritocracy, then let's not lower the standards for you. You, sir, are a no-go at this station.
Ouch, ouch, ouch. That was, oh my God, that was brutal. That was brutal, but you know why it was brutal? Because Tammy Duckworth, she has the experience. You know, she has integrity. She knows what she's talking about. She's a war veteran. She lost her legs flying a helicopter that was brought down for this nation, and she has worked her whole life once she came back on behalf of veterans, making sure that troops are safe and that our nation is safe, working in Congress. And she knows Pete Hegseth is far from qualified, obviously, to hold this position, you know, that right now he leads. It's unfortunate. You know how the say goes when people say, well, that's too little, too late? With Pete Hegseth, it's just like probably too much, too soon. It's the opposite. It's too much, too many problems, too many, errors, too many, completely, bad decisions that have endangered our troops, endangered our nation's security. When it comes now to the new scandal, which is, aside from the watchdog report that came out today, which is why I'm telling you, he will be impeached. Either Donald Trump is going to get rid of him, because right now, he was a major liability before this whole scandal about the Caribbean survivor killings. He was a major liability for many reasons, and Donald Trump was already floating the idea, according to reporting, of removing Pete Hegseth, even though publicly he would deny it. He's doing the same with Kash Patel. There's really solid reporting from sources saying that he's planning on removing Kash Patel and promoting a guy from within who happens to be a career person at the FBI. So we may see these changes coming soon, but especially with Pete Hegseth, Donald Trump might as well just get rid of him. But if not, he's going to get impeached sooner or later, because there's just too soon. It's been roughly 10 months. And look at all the ways that Pete Hegseth has been just, being careless and irresponsible and putting national security at risk. Let's listen to law professor, military career lawyer, JAG resource, Dan Maurer on Glenn Kirshner's show. Let's listen to what they have to say about how serious the Caribbean situation is that will lead to very, very serious problems, legal problems for both Pete Hegseth and the general and anyone else involved in that decision to kill survivors in the chain of command. So take a listen. Let me create a screen here. For some reason, the video is not playing, so I have to grab it on my computer to play it for you. It'll take just a second here. Allow me a second here.
Law professor.
Profesor de Derecho.
Okay, here it is. Allow me a second.
Law professor, retired Army Lieutenant Colonel, retiring from the U.S. Army JAG Corps. He taught constitutional law and criminal law at West Point. He also taught at the Army's JAG School on the campus of the University of Virginia. He has become a frequent flyer here, unfortunately, talking about the continued abuses of Donald Trump, Pete Hegseth, and the folks who are deciding to obey what appear to be clearly, patently unlawful orders. So first of all, happy holiday weekend and welcome back, Dan. I'm so happy that you're back with us.
Thank you, Glenn. Happy post-Thanksgiving to everybody.
I want to start this with just reading a little bit from the new Washington Post reporting about the latest travesty. The headline is Hegseth order on first Caribbean boat strike. Officials say kill them all. And just a little bit of the reporting includes Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth gave a spoken directive, according to two people with direct knowledge of the operation. Quote, the order was to kill everybody, close quote, one of them said. A missile screamed off the Trinidad coast, striking the vehicle and igniting a blaze from bow to stern. For minutes, commanders watched the boat burning on a live drone feed. As the smoke cleared, they got a jolt. Two survivors were clinging to the smoldering wreck. The Special Operations Commander overseeing the September 2 attack, the opening salvo in the Trump administration's war on suspected drug traffickers in the Western Hemisphere, ordered a second strike to comply with Hegseth's instructions. Two people familiar with the matter said, and the two men were blown apart in the water. Now, Dan, I saw you post something on LinkedIn, and you said, I'm not going to read much of it, but quote, if the reporting here is accurate, I'm disgusted, appalled, and angry. Any order to execute these boat strikes on narco-terrorists is an unlawful order that should have been rejected by the chain of command, and there is no way to wash clean the taint of illegality that defines an order to, quote, kill everyone, including the survivors of the first strike clinging to the side of the sinking boat. You know, I think this is so appalling, and it turns our stomachs. But can you talk a little bit about the illegality of what is being reported in this Washington Post article?
Yeah, I mean, aside from it being completely immoral and base to do that to survivors of a strike, there's a reason why it's illegal under international law, because it's viewed as beyond the pale. So the first thing to note is that under...
Did you know that you can create insane AI videos of yourself with Nano Banana and Veed Fabric?
Well-known international law that goes back not just modern internet, customary international law directing how you use force abroad says you cannot give an order for no quarter, take no survivors. That's not lawful under any interpretation of the law of armed conflict, and it hasn't been for a very long time. I mean, this predates the revolution, and it's certainly embedded in the Hague regulations and in the Geneva Conventions that we have signed as treaties and make part of our law. And it's something that we train our service members as one of the basic foundational principles of all of our. You don't kill prisoners. You don't kill what are called hors de combat, or out of the fight. French for out of the fight. That includes POWs, includes wounded and sick, and it includes the shipwrecked. It includes survivors. And there are special protections that you give to shipwrecked crews, whether you're fighting a law enforcement campaign or you're fighting an armed conflict. When there are survivors in the sea, you actually have a duty to go rescue them. Not just don't kill them, but to also rescue them. That's an affirmative obligation to save their life, not to take their life. It's easy to kill them. Clearly we did that. But I don't understand what really bothered at a core level is how that order, that kill everyone order, was interpreted by a 3-star admiral at the time. That admiral commanding JSOC is now the commander 4-star of Special Operations Command, a former Navy SEAL. Well, I guess you're always a Navy SEAL. Former commander of SEAL Team 6 said, launch the second missile, because those two shipwrecked crew members might get picked up by their fellow narco-terrorists and continue trafficking drugs. 1, highly unlikely. 2, that doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. And he should have known that. He absolutely should have known that. Whether there was a JAG in the room or not, that's basic. That's like, how do you shoot your weapon basic? And that, to me, is an impeachable offense for Hegseth. It is a court-martialable offense for the admiral. And I take no joy in saying that as a former retired officer to say that there's any blame here on the military, but there is. They followed a patently lawful order to kill those drug runners, assuming they're drug runners, even if they're the worst drug runners in the world, even if they're armed. If they're not shooting at the U.S. forces at the time, they are not targetable. In fact, they had to be saved, picked up and rescued, not just blown to pieces, as the reporting indicates. It is so far illegal that I cannot understand how someone that senior could have allowed that to happen. And all down the chain of command. And it might have been the 3-star to a drone operator or someone firing a missile from a plane. Who knows? It might have been 2 steps, but both of those steps should have been a firm rejection. No, we're not going to kill them. Bottom line. And they should have put their stars on the table. You want to fire me for that? Fine, but I'm not doing that. That's what should have happened, and that's what didn't happen. And who knows? Maybe it happened multiple times. That was just the first strike. It may have happened every other time since then. So clearly a massively important breaking story. Incredibly bad news for those who thought that, like me, who thought that the military would ultimately do the right thing in the face of a clearly, manifestly, patently unlawful order, that they would reject it. Because that's what they're trained to do. It's a professional norm, it's a professional obligation, and it's not hard to spot the blatantly, patently unlawful orders. And this was one of those. And so they should have rejected it.
Wow, guys, I'm telling you, this is damning. This is highly devastating. So, recapping, the Trump administration is having a really, really bad moment right now. I told you that Judge Boasberg just literally yesterday gave an order to Kristi Noem at DHS. They have to put right now every single person on sworn affidavits. He is requesting for them to be put on record. No more games. He's not playing. He's not having it anymore. No more games. He wants people on record. You have something to say it under oath. Remember, he has a criminal contempt investigation open right now. So the fact that he's asking everyone from Kristi Noem all the way down on the chain of command to be on the record with sworn affidavits, sworn declarations, means he is moving forward with criminal contempt referrals for prosecution. That's not good news for them. And now we have this watchdog, Inspector General who was investigating Pete Hegseth. The report is out. I was actually sharing a video when I started this episode, but for anyone that might have joined late, the problem here is that Pete Hegseth, let me see if I can share, maybe read just the headline and maybe a couple of things for you here. Look at this. Exclusive. Watchdog finds Hegseth risked endangering troops by sharing sensitive war plans and signal. Sources say this comes at a really bad time for Pete Hegseth and battle Pete Hegseth. Remember, he is in the middle of a whole shit show right now, a storm when it comes to the Caribbean killing of 2 survivors that supposedly he gave the order to kill everyone. And apparently the general carrying out Pete Hegseth's order to kill everybody went around and fired a second time. But now there's different types of reporting or rumors or speculation that Pete Hegseth actually might have given the order to kill the survivors. Now Pete Hegseth is saying that he knew nothing. Donald Trump is saying that he knew nothing. And by the way, one thing that I actually share, we're going to come back to this, but let me create a new screen here for you to share a meme that I actually was posting yesterday on my social media, because these people believe that the fact that they are, that they are saying that they knew nothing somehow means that they get away, that they're saving their ass, right? But look at the problem when you say you knew nothing. If you say you knew nothing, this was my response to that. Check this out. So I shared this on social media. If Trump and Pete Hegseth didn't know that survivors would be killed, you know that any mission has a plan A, which is the main plan for the attack and everything, but then you have a plan B, worst case scenario. You may even have a plan C, right? You have a plan to respond to a failure, to something going wrong, to maybe the attack being unsuccessful, to maybe even getting caught or, attacked by the enemy before being able to carry out. You have multiple scenarios, and don't tell me that the military doesn't consider plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D, plan E. They have all these things, all these bases are covered. So if you say you didn't know that survivors would be killed, right, in the case that the attack wasn't 100% successful, then the military, that means that the military operates on its own. You're saying that the military operates on its own, and therefore that means that Donald Trump and Hegseth lack command authority and must resign because they don't know what their troops are doing. I don't know. They're just improvising. We didn't know what they were going to do. Do you think that sounds good for a fucking commander-in-chief? For a fucking military, in this case, the actual top person, which is the war secretary, the defense secretary, to say, well, I didn't know, I just empowered them to make decisions. I didn't know they were going to do this as plan B, carrying out the orders that I gave to kill everybody, right? So it's one of two. So if you knew nothing about them planning on killing survivors on, plan B, then that means that you're fucking incompetent and you should resign. Both the commander-in-chief, because Donald Trump is always lost. He knows nothing. Donald Trump is always saying, I didn't know. I didn't know the person. Yes, I pardoned the person. I didn't know him. Just some people told me he was a good person. Some people said that he was very nice. Some people said that what he did wasn't even that bad. He was saying those things about the Binance founder, Sisi, the Binance founder, who actually was engaged in allowing people to finance terrorism and human trafficking and even child sexual exploitation, financing those crimes through including drugs, through his platform Binance. But since he is in bed in business with Donald Trump's family, Donald Trump pardoned this motherfucker and said, well, I didn't know him. A lot of people said that he was a great guy. Come on. But anyway, number one, if you didn't know, that means that you're incompetent. That means that you are not in control of your troops. The chain of command is literally no chain at all. It's just like a bunch of people doing whatever the fuck they want, and you don't know. You don't have any control, no respect. You're not being a dominating figure at the top right now of the chain. But if in that case, on the other hand, if that's not going to be the defense, if they actually did know or if they did order the killing of survivors, Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth, then they are war criminals. So this is a lose-lose situation. There is no way for Pete Hegseth or for Donald Trump to look good claiming they knew nothing. Oh, we knew nothing. Well, they may just shift the blame, and now they're just they're throwing this guy, the general, under the bus, which I'm so happy to see that happening. Because we tell people all the time, we tell lawyers, we tell Trump's cabinet members, we tell the troops, don't follow Donald Trump. Don't submit to Donald Trump. Don't follow illegal orders, which was the whole message Democrat veterans were literally saying a week ago. And look at how timely that message came out, that now we just have a scandal saying that a general might have, and more people, and when it comes to the chain of command, more people might have followed illegal orders to kill survivors that amount to war crimes, serious war crimes. These people may face, court martials. Pete Hegseth impeachment, the general, a court martial, putting his whole career on the line, even risking going to freaking jail. Of course, we know Donald Trump probably will try to save and pardon, some of these people anyway. So it wouldn't surprise me that even if there is proof that these people committed war crimes, that he would save Pete Hegseth, that he would save this general probably, and he can. The president can't even pardon a general after committing war crimes. I'm not aware legally that the pardon would be limited. I believe that he can cover. It's still a federal offense. So Donald Trump could still save him, but it doesn't look good for them at all. But that's what's going on. We have this new report coming out by the Inspector General that Pete Hegseth actually did not declassify the information, the battle plans, the war plans. Remember, Pete Hegseth said there was nothing wrong. There were no battle plans. There was no classified information. It was war plans. It was classified information. There is no record, according to the Attorney General that just published his report. This is going viral right now as we speak. He never declassified the information that he was sharing on Signal, which is an unapproved app, unsafe app that has been hacked many times, endangering the lives of American troops. And he was sending the same information to his wife, to his brother, to his personal lawyer. And they even sent it to a reporter. This is how this whole thing came out. Remember, they included in the group by mistake. So incompetent. Not only they were endangering, the lives of troops, they wanted to make sure that somebody knew about it because they included a complete stranger, a reporter that had nothing to do with whatever, conversations and discussions they were having on war plans and battle plans with the Houthis or against the Houthis back around, March when this happened. So imagine that. It's been only 10 months and Pete Hegseth is surrounded by scandal. We have heard for years about Hunter Biden's laptop, the Hunter Biden laptop story. They even made like a bunch of stuff on TV. Fox News had a whole series like this, a series on Hunter Biden. And Hunter eventually, I think he sued him to try to stop it or something. They made some series around Hunter Biden, acting the whole Hunter Biden story and access and whatever, drug or woman abuse or whatever, all the excesses, really bad things in his life. They had a whole series about that. But anyway, Hunter Biden's laptop, biggest scandal ever. But we have Pete Hegseth's laptop. There's reporting, too, that by the same time he was using Signal on his phone, he had a laptop. And that personal laptop was not vetted, was not approved to be used. He was using it in the Pentagon for official related information, apparently, because he had, this is what reports, say, that apparently he was using this personal laptop. And he also had hired a private internet company that was not going through the vetted internet, protected internet that the Pentagon uses, because they make sure that no hackers, they make sure that you can't connect to, dangerous websites. You're handling information in the Pentagon's national security stuff. army, troops related stuff, you don't want to be using a personal computer. You don't want to be using an unvetted internet service that may be unprotected and not have the proper, firewalls and all the protections that you may need. So apparently Pete Hegseth had a private internet service so that he could use his personal laptop and so that he could use the app Signal on his computer too. Why do these people want to use Signal so much? Why are they so obsessed, fixated on Signal? Because Signal, just like WhatsApp, gives you encrypted messages. These encrypted messages will disappear. You can make them disappear too. And there's no official record. That has nothing to do with the government because it's not a government-approved official channel. So anything they talk, they discuss, they debate on Signal will never see the light of day unless they are finally brought to a court and their phones are, seized and they do forensic analysis. And I'm not sure that by doing forensic analysis, they would be able to recover all the messages from Signal. They may recover some, depending, but I'm not sure. I'm not a digital forensic expert, even though I'm a web developer, database developer, and I'm actually also right now finishing, cybersecurity course too. So I know a little bit about it, but when it comes to specifics, forensics, I'm not sure how much they would be able to recover from WhatsApp or Signal after these messages have been, encrypted messages have been actually deleted, or I'm not sure if, by legal means they could get the actual Signal app to dig deeper to see if they can find some of these deleted files and provide them to the court. There may be an opportunity. Remember this. When things are deleted in a digital device, a hard drive, they're never they don't disappear magically. They're always kind of like decoded and highly compressed and push onto some little corner on your hard drive. So the information is still there. There's things called like military wipe that are supposedly more aggressive, but there may always be the chance that some of these things can be recovered, and they routinely do for different things. So I'm not sure how much they would be able to recover. But the thing is this. If somebody comes in, watch group, watchdog, any group that has to do with civil rights or, migrant rights, they want to sue the Pentagon or the White House or any agency to demand information. There's a law for that. It's called the Freedom of Information Act. For short, they call it FOIA, Freedom of Information Act. Based on FOIA, the government has to release pretty much everything that they have unless the DOJ claims that something is related to national security. There's certain ways that they can get around it. But for the most part, if you can't justify any national security thing or executive privilege, you have to comply with the FOIA demand, and you have to release information to the press, to the public, to different organizations, and so on. But that's only information that is shared on official government-approved channels, email, official, phones given by the government and stuff like that. Information on the computers, databases, but anything on a personal phone, on a private app like Signal, is not covered by FOIA. I'm not sure if there's a technicality that if it's related to government, deliberations, government war plans, right? If they can claim that should be included, but for the most part, it's not. And good luck trying to find it on my Signal app that has encrypted messaging and self-disappearing messaging, after a while or, so on. So who knows? That may be the reason why they don't want to be on the record having all of these conversations about illegal stuff or about sharing war plans on personal apps that are completely unvetted and unsecured. So I'm telling you, it doesn't matter how you look at it. It looks bad. It's bad, from every single angle that you can take a look. What you see is incompetence, inefficiency, inexperience, risk, high risk, dangerous, a very dangerous mindset that is putting national security at risk. So anyway, that's it for today's episode, guys. I'm going to wrap it up. I may be later, be back later with a second episode. But for the most part, thank you for joining. Let me tell you, please, if you speak Spanish, if you have any Spanish-speaking friends or family members, please send them to Brian Tyler Cohen Espanol Brian has a channel. Brian has a very successful channel in English. Probably most of you have seen him. Watch his show. He's been all over the place. He's been on CNN, MSNBC, Piers Morgan's show, Chris Cuomo's show. He's all over the place right now. He's one of the top leading voices on the progressive ecosystem right now. Him, David Pakman, Midas Touch, Adam Mockler. There's many of them. But Brian is, right up there at the very top. And he launched, he's the only one that I know in the last couple of years that has launched a Spanish channel, other than David Pakman. But David Pakman, he pulled the plug. David Pakman had a Spanish channel, but he ran it for like 3 or 4 months, maybe 5 months. Unfortunately, it seemed like it wasn't taking off. I remember watching his videos in Spanish, David Pakman's, and it wasn't even him speaking Spanish, David Pakman. He was actually doing like dubbing, or I don't know if it was real dubbing or AI. But unfortunately, for some reason, the videos weren't taking off. They were getting just 100 views, 200 views. That's not enough to support a channel at some point, especially if you're paying somebody to help you translate everything. But when it comes to Brian started around the same time, like a month later after David Pakman launched his channel. Like Brian actually launched his. And it's been already almost 3 years that we've been working on this project. I've been helping Brian, leading the whole Spanish production, translation, dubbing of most of his videos. Glenn Kirshner, the legal breakdown videos from his podcast. All the series that he has with Mark Elias, the constitutional lawyer. Also, we're translating those to Spanish and many others, interviews to Gavin Newsom, to Joe Biden, to Kamala Harris, AOC, Bernie Sanders, every single governor, congressperson that you can think of, state legislators too. So he has a great show. The Spanish show, obviously, is just equally as good, just in Spanish. So we're trying to build up that audience and channel. So please, if you can help us. I also host a Spanish podcast. So you can search my last name, Aranzamendi Podcast Español. That would be my Spanish podcast, which is my main podcast. I'm trying to now, develop this English podcast because I've had this channel for a long time. I really wasn't consistent doing like podcasts. I actually even shared at some point some music and some other personal stuff. But now, now that I'm very into politics and I'm working with Brian for like around 3 years, and I've been doing my Spanish podcast for around 2 years, and it's growing. It's been successful. In around a year and a half, I have been able to grow the channel to around close to 43,000 followers right now, which I'm very grateful for. So thank you for all the people who have supported my Spanish channel. And now I'm just trying to do the same with this one. I believe that we need more independent media. We know traditional media is failing us. They're just trying to play this both sides, approach to look as neutral as they can. And yes, I understand if you're a news media company, you definitely want to be objective and you want to be neutral as much as you can. But we know what is true. Donald Trump is always claiming that he's being treated unfairly so that you don't report all the bad stuff. Or if you do, you kind of like tone it down, you water it down so that it doesn't sound as bad, or it's not that consistent. Or if you say something bad about Trump, you have to go and dig deep to see if you can find something equally bad or sounding kind of bad, so to show that you're also criticizing, like Democrats, as if, Democrats' actions were even in the same universe as, Trump's actions. We know Trump, obviously, he's a convicted felon. He's a fraudster, but it's not even close. It's not even close. But anyway, we know we can't trust traditional media. So this is a time for independent media to grow, and people to do, what Brian Tyler Cohen's doing, David Pakman, and, the Midas Touch Network. It's a family, a couple of brothers doing a great job, and now they have a bunch of resources. They're growing. I can see Midas Touch soon maybe going for a channel. They should, launch like their own TV channel, just to bring down Fox News, because Fox News, they were attacking Midas recently, and now it happens that Midas, in one of the latest report, is actually like 3 positions ahead of Fox News. I believe they were number 1, and now Fox is like number 4 in the nation or so. Remember, that's a big deal. Fox News was, happens to be like the most popular network in the country, and for Midas Touch to be on one of the most recent, ranking reports ahead of Fox News in the nation, that's amazing. And they're just digital. They don't have a channel. They don't have, like a TV channel. So, like a news official TV network. So they should maybe come up with something like that, like an official TV network. Anyway, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for supporting. If you can, it's not too much to ask. Please like and subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment. Those things really go a long way. They just feed the algorithm so that this content can be shown to more people. That's all we're trying to do, so that people can be better informed when it comes to what's really going on with this administration, which is not good. So I believe impeachment is coming soon. Republicans were joining yesterday. Republicans, we had like 5, as of yesterday, like 5 Republicans joining the calls for deep investigations of what's going on in the Caribbean, especially with the killing of survivors. And that was even before this watchdog report was just released, saying that Pete Hegseth actually did share classified information, that he did not declassify it, and that he did. This is the report. The report says that he did endanger. He endangered the lives of American troops. And that's just the gist of it. Go find this report, guys. Share it. People have to know that the country is not in good hands right now. And this is important so that we can make the right decisions moving forward. And every single time we have an opportunity to go out to vote. Courts are not going to save us. Congress is not going to save us. Only going out to vote when it matters, when it counts. In every single election, even now, in the midterms and then 2028, that's what's going to save the country. Okay, so thank you so much. I'll be back later on. Thank you for tuning in. Take care. Bye-bye.